This is a follow-up video to the first one I made regarding the Rainier Wedge 180 grain bullet. I've had questions on people asking for load data, and rather than just giving you the powder charge I use, the type of powder, cartridge overall length, and primer, I want to explain a few things of maybe why that charge isn't working for you. It works good in my gun, doesn't work in your gun. Why is that? The first thing I want to talk about is brass prep. That is probably the most important thing in any cartridge for accuracy. You're going to want to obviously clean your brass. I always deburr the inside flash hole. Get a flash hole deburring tool and knock the burrs off on the inside, and it's a one-time deal. You do it once, you don't have to do it again, you're done. So after that is finished on there, you want to make sure that all your brass is the same lot, whether it's purchased or you're making your own from Lake City or whatever the manufacturer. Don't have all different manufacturer lots of brass. Everything needs to be the same. So brass lot the same. I talked about neck thickness in the first video. You might want to go back and watch that, because neck thickness is very important for fitting in your chamber once you seat the bullet. A lot of people say, well, I can't chamber it after I put the round in. It's probably neck wall thickness, because these things grow when you make your own. They get pretty thick. They got to be turned down. So when you're reforming these using a full-length die, you want to make sure on an AR-15 platform that the shoulder is bumped back from the base 3 to 5 thousandths for a semi-auto. If you're shooting a bolt action or single shot, you can go 2 to 3 thousandths, and that's fine. But you want to make sure that you get that measurement, and there's gauges and tools out there to measure that, so that you can make sure that everything is the same, that all your reloading lots are as close as you can make them. So once you have that taken care of and you've resized them, you run it through the die. I like to turn my brass 180 degrees on the full-length die and run it through again. I just feel that it helps straighten the neck, more concentric, keeps things in line. I also throw an additional Lee collet die that I talked about on the first one. That I think really helps to straighten the neck. Just concentricity is a biggie here. You want everything perfect in line, straight as you can make it. Before you check and file and trim, you want to full-length size them, because if you trim before you size them, they're going to grow. So last thing you're going to do is you're going to check the overall case length, and you're going to trim it to whatever size you're going to trim. I like to run mine a little bit longer, but that has to be all the same. So everything as close as you can make it tolerance-wise, to the exact you can get. These bullets will shoot fine. They're essentially a pistol bullet, but if you do your case prep and you get everything as best you can make it, these things will do sub-NOA at 100. I mean, I've done it. I know they'll do that. So a lot of it is case prep on getting there. Let's talk about different powders you use for subsonic loads. I've experimented with these three. Most people use a lot more powder than that, but I've found with these three I settled on the one that shot best for me. I really thought CFE Black was going to be my ticket, that thing was going to just be my subsonic load. I found out that it's very finicky unless it's compressed a lot. If you have a small charge in here, and it's really not called flashover, but it's powder position. Whether when you put it in your rifle and it's pushed forward and the powder's down, exposing the flash of the primer, or back, covering it up, powder position. Really sensitive to that because it's such a small charge. 296 is pretty much the same way. I couldn't get the consistency I wanted. I would get crazy flyers here and there. I'd shoot a nice tight group one day. I'd go out the exact same load and get 2 in a bug hole, a couple flyers. Well, after doing some looking around, asking some questions, I found out what I needed was a high volume powder, IMR 4227. It's kind of a stick, if you want to call it that, where these are little round balls. This fills the case a lot more. So what you're getting is more case fill. You're not getting that powder position issue. I really don't take a whole lot of time on the bench. I'll load the mag, slam the bolt closed, and I'll shoot them. I don't want to have to worry about, okay, did I shake the gun forward for powder position? Is it level where the powder's level? I'm not going to worry about that if I'm out hunting or if I'm out just, blasting subsonic rounds. And I found that I get super good consistency with IMR 4227 with the subsonic, with the Rainier Wedge. It took this bullet and woke up the sleeper. That thing just, it loves it. In my gun anyway. I want to briefly touch about seating these bullets one more time. I talked about it in depth on the first video about modifying your stem for these bullets because the taper is inconsistent. So you want to adjust your stem like I had discussed in the first video to get more consistent seating. I found too, when you're seating these bullets, instead of going full stroke, seating it in one stroke, stop about halfway, turn the case 180, and then complete seating all the way down. If you do seat all the way down, no big deal. Turn the case, then stroke it again, just to make sure you get consistent seating. I found that that really helps keep things in line better. I run it through a concentricity gauge when I'm done to check them, and I have really good results with that. And you're always going to want to measure these not from the tip to the base. You're going to want to measure them from the ogive to the base, and that's going to give you a more consistent measurement. Okay, this is the part of the video most of you have just been waiting for, putting up with me. But I'll give you my subsonic load that I shoot out of this pretty much basic AR platform. No frills, no nothing. It's got a Landtech bolt in it. CBC upper, their manufactured barrel, non-adjustable gas block. It's pistol gassed. I did a little trigger work to it. Everything is shot with the ATN digital scope. So it's not a bench rest scope. It's a hunting scope. But I've shown you on videos, I've got other ones out there too, where I can shoot great groups with these Rainier Wedges at the 300 blackout. And so you don't need, high dollar vortexes to get these things to drill them in there. I mean, I do it with ATN scope. So to get to the meat of it, for my subsonic load for the 180 grain Rainier Wedge, IMR 4227 is the powder. I use 10.2 grains of powder. I use CCI 400 primers, and my trim length on the brass is 1.365 for this chamber. I run them just a little bit longer for this chamber, and I have no problems, works fine. All of it is Lake City converted GI brass that I've converted myself, turned the necks, prep the brass. I do have a comparator for the overall length, but comparators are going to be different, so I'm going to give you a rough measurement from tip to base, which is 2.090. My particular comparator measures at 2.548 from the ogive to the base. Yours could be different, so you just have to check it out. But it's hard to get a consistent tip to base measurement, but that's the number if that's what you're looking for. Again, like I said, this is not a high dollar rifle. It is a Colt match target lower that I've done some working and tweaking to, but as far as the upper goes, not a whole lot of money sunk into it. A few upgrades here and there, but like I said before, it's how you prep your brass, consistency, concentric, keeping things straight. The brass is the weakest part of the link of that cartridge. You need to do your part to make it the best you can, and upon firing, to keep that bullet straight in line with the bore before it engages rifling and shoots out that barrel and hits your mark, and make things very, very repeatable. So that's kind of part 2 for the bullet on some loading data tips.